Hey everyone, welcome back to the shop. Today, we're getting started on some LED-based neon signs. Now for those that follow along on Instagram with all of my project work, you'll probably have seen some of these neon signs in the past. And I've done a couple of different versions, but the one that I typically come back to time and again is this version where I have a black backing plate where I mount all of the LED rope lights to. And that has a little bit more of that classic neon vibe where you've got a sign and the neon sits on top of that sign. So for this project, I've actually got two different signs that I'm going to be working on, and I've already got my templates made with the outline of the sign that I'm going to be working on, as well as this guy, which is going to be kind of an interesting one. I'm going to be doing the outline of the lettering on that versus just, kind of a line script. But I'm going to get the rough shape of the plywood cut down first, and then from there, I'm going to take this over to the bandsaw to cut the final outline of each sign. So let's get going on that. Now for those that are wondering, I typically use 1/2-inch plywood when making these signs, as I found the strength to weight ratio to be the best. Plus, this thickness just looks good when the sign is finished. Now when transferring your design to the plywood, there are numerous paths you can take. Here I am tracing my previously printed out hand-cut templates onto the plywood and using the poking method to transfer the script lettering. But an easier way would have been to cut out the area for the lettering so I could just use a pencil or a marker to trace that onto the board. Now I'm thinking about it, I guess you could use a stencil cutter to make the template, or another option could have been to laser etch your pattern onto the board. See, there's a lot of different paths you could take with this one. After getting the signs rough cut, I'll go in with a coping saw to get all the smaller areas I couldn't quite reach on the bandsaw. From there, it's on to sanding all of the edges. For this, I use a mix of the belt sander, my improvised spindle sander using the drill press, and a few hand-powered detail sanders. With everything nice and smooth, it's on to the fun and somewhat laborious part, attaching the light strips. First, I begin by positioning small lighting clips based on where I think the light strip will need supports to maintain the shape of the lettering I've laid out. Once the clips are in place, I'll cut the lighting strip to length based on the cutting indications on the side of the strip. This can be a bit tricky depending on the strips you have, as some of the cutting locations might not be in the best spot for your design, thus some minor adjustments usually have to be made. So right off the bat, I gotta apologize for a couple things. One, I finished the other sign. I was kind of up against the deadline on that one and just needed to get that one done. But as you can see, it turned out pretty good. The other thing that I did was on this other sign, I went ahead and soldered in all of the lead wires to the LED light strips and realized after the fact, I probably should have showed that, but here we are. This process is really not that difficult. For those that haven't soldered before, it's a pretty straightforward process. You've got a little metal iron that melts some solder and allows you to make an electrical connection. For these lights specifically, the light strips actually come with little lead wires that are all pre-tinned, meaning that they have some solder already applied to the wires. All you need to do from here is add a little bit of solder to the electrical pads that will be exposed once you've gone through and cut all of the LED rope lights to the desired length that you want them. After you've done that, just tap all of the wires into place, kind of making sure that the red wire goes towards the side that will be showing off the lights and black towards the bottom. And I like to double check that I've done my soldering joints correctly and that there are no bad lights by just tapping the wire leads to a 9-volt battery. That pretty much catches us up to where I'm at now. From here, I'm gonna go ahead and add a supporting frame onto the back of the sign. So let's get to that. For the support frame on these signs, I like to use small 3/4 inch blocks as standoffs for a French cleat and rear brace. Attaching it to the back of the sign was CA glue for a quick hold and wood glue for a stronger bond. Now I know what you're gonna say. Wow, French cleats? Man, this guy is such a woodworking YouTuber. And you're right. I am a guy who makes wood-related projects on YouTube, and I happen to like using French cleats. This is certainly just the cleanest way that I've found so far to hang these signs. Once all the brackets are in place, I'll prep the sign for painting. To do this, I'll remove each light strip one by one and mark the back of each segment to make it easier to reassemble after painting. Then I can take the sign outside and coat it with some black spray paint. The last step is to tie all of the individual light strips together and add a plug for the power cord. Now while this looks complex, it's actually pretty simple. All I'm doing is soldering all of the feeder wires coming from the light strips to a larger bus wire that I then solder into the power plug. And if soldering isn't your forte, you could also make all of these connections using suitcase connectors and butt connectors that crimp the wires together to make the connection. After that, voila. That's gonna be a wrap on the LED neon sign project. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I definitely enjoy building them myself. And I feel like overall, it's a fairly easy project. There's definitely a few intermediate steps like soldering and a lot of the electrical work that might seem a little bit intimidating, but that's why I laid out the option for doing, pre-made connectors to connect everything up and hopefully get the same results. But I'd love to know if anyone was inspired to tackle a project like this themselves. If so, feel free to message me with what you've made because I'd love to see it. And if you enjoy this one, do all the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you next time.